Hi, my name is Nadine and I'm a CPA. Today I'm going to show you my accounting system for my equestrian business. You can make an accounting system as complicated or as easy as you want. It's all dependent on the type of information you want to get out of it. So basically, as long as you pay your taxes and you have that information correct, you can make your system very, very simple. But for myself, I like to base business decisions off of my accounting system. So I have a system that's somewhere in between complicated and not complicated. So I want to know the amount of shavings I use in a month. I want to know who is getting vet bills of the horses. We own quite a few horses, so I want to make sure that we're assigning those vet bills to specific horses. So at the end of the year, or monthly, whatever, however often we want to look at it, we know what's costing us money, who's costing us money. We also want to know people's hours, so like subcontractors or whoever. We want to have a system for tracking those. And then as well, some clients prefer to pay in cash, but we want to make sure that we track all cash transactions so that we can roll them up into our taxes, but also just so that if cash transactions get quite large, you're not losing sight of them. You want to put all information into a database that makes the most amount of sense for you, because a database, you can manipulate the numbers and change like your date ranges. Whereas if it's all just kind of an Excel, it's kind of a stuck system. Whereas if you use a database like QuickBooks, then you can say, okay, I want to know for 4 months, or I want to know information for 6 months. You can play with things a bit. So that's the benefit of using a database specifically designed for accounting. QuickBooks is great. It does have holes in the way I would have designed it, but it is great for getting a lot of information out of it. And then we use QuickBooks, but we also roll up our personal expenses as a farm. So expenses that you wouldn't write off, like our personal hydro. And how we roll that up is we take information from QuickBooks and we put it into Excel so that we have a complete picture of our family expenses. So like expenses that you wouldn't write off would be like clothing for yourself. So at the end of the month, you can go, okay, I know exactly where our money went, versus having no idea. Like, oh, I wasn't, aware that I was spending that much per month on, your cable bill. If you have like a bunch of streaming platforms, you can put things into categories in your personal expenses, and then that way you know how much you're spending on the business and on your personal life. Watching accounting videos can be a bit dry, I'm not going to lie. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break these accounting videos down into parts. And then that way you can watch the parts of the video that you want to watch, and you can skip the parts that you don't want to watch. Part one of our accounting system is paying people and calculating out hours. So the first thing that I do is I write out a bunch of these calendars, and then I'll put the person's name. So if it's my husband or myself or my 2 kids, because they get paid for their allowance based off of how much they work in the barn. And then the month as well as the year, because we keep these so that we have a running record of how many hours that we're putting into the business. Now, that is so important, and it's the biggest mistake that a lot of smaller facilities make, is not keeping track of how many hours that you're putting into the business. And a lot of times people are not reflecting the amount of hours that is needed to run a facility in their board price. So that is a huge mistake, and it's a mistake that you can't make for the long run, because if your board is too cheap, what's going to happen is, one, you're going to get burnt out because you'll be working for free, and 2, eventually your business is going to go stagnant, because You won't be able to pay for things like new arena lights, new jumps, upgrades to stalls. Oh, you broke some boards on fences. So if you're not paying yourself at least a minimum wage, and your board price is too low, which often in the industry it is, your business is going to suffer for the long term. It might not suffer at first, but in the long term, it's definitely going to suffer. And then you won't be able to put out the quality of horse that you want to put out to the market. So this is an area of the business that is so, so, so important. I can't stress it enough. So step one, like I said, is you write out new calendars for this month. I've made up all the calendars that I need. It's actually quite a few of them. These are all calendars for each person. This one right here is the cash locker calendar. So when people pay me cash, I'll actually write down on the day how much they paid me and what they were paying me for. So if they paid me on the 10th, but their lesson was actually on the 4th, I'll write down their name and then say it's for the lesson on the 4th, but I write it down on the 10th for when they gave it to me. So then that way, like when they hand you money, you can remember, oh, when did they do that? And then you can look back later and make sure that you're not giving lessons away for free, that people are actually paying you. So now let's do this. For most of the stuff I'm going to show you, it's not going to be real information. But this right here is real information. It's from my son, so it's all good. What he does, we have hours, but what we do is for our boys in particular, they track what type of hour they were doing. So this is 30 minutes B, which stands for barn. So anytime that they're cleaning the barn or bringing horses in from turnout, something like that, we categorize those hours as B. Silly dogs. And then the category here, F, that stands for facility. So anytime they're doing something like helping me set courses or moving jumps around or something that's not day-to-day activities, they categorize those hours as F. So then not only are we tracking their hours, but also what type of hours. And so you can create as many categories as you want, but we only wanted for our two kids to track the difference between those 2 hours. Okay, so now that I have his number of hours, what we're going to do is we're going to put this information into Excel. So then that way we have a total picture for everybody's hours all on one spreadsheet. Here is the spreadsheet. It has fake information in it already. So if you wanted, this spreadsheet just has 2 sets of hours. The barn hour rate, we're going to call that $30 an hour. That would be nice, wouldn't it? And then the facility hour rate, facility being like moving jumps or like creating hay using big heavy tractors. Something that's not the day-to-day, we're going to say that we're going to pay $50 an hour. Obviously, those are a little bit high, but we're just going to pretend for the spreadsheet. And then this person, this is our son, we just went ahead and plugged his hours in. So let's say this was his barn hours. This column is his barn hours. And this column right here is his facility hours. So he worked a couple facility hours this month. So then at the bottom here, it's going to tally up, okay, so he did 8.5 hours of barn hours and 4 hours of facility. This would be the rate right here, this $30 and this $50. And then if you combine these 2 columns, that's how much he would make at this fake rate. At this fake rate, he'd make $55. But what this spreadsheet does is if you put everybody's hours into it, so I'm just going to pick a couple fake hours here. Let's say this person worked 5 hours, this person worked 4 hours, and then let's say 2 hours. And then I went and did that. what I'm going to be able to see here is the total number of hours was 11 for this day. The total number of barn hours was 5, and then the total number of facility hours was 6. So the day-to-day hours, that is going to be this column right here. And if I look at the bottom, I'll know that I paid out, okay, this is a funny example, but we paid out $405 total for just day-to-day activities. And then the facility, like hiring somebody to move jumps or film you or whatever, not day-to-day activities, we paid out $500. And then the total was $950. So by putting all of your hours for everybody into this spreadsheet, I'll know, okay, so why was, let's say, this day was 15 hours total, this $15 total, this one's $15 total. I'll look and be like, hey, this day there was $65 paid, which is quite a bit higher than the other days. Was that an efficiency problem? Were we not very efficient? Or did something happen like a water overflow or a horse gets sick and somebody had to stay extra and walk a horse or whatever the case is? And then I'll often put notes right here like a horse slipped, and I'll write that in there so that when I come back a couple months later, or I can be like, how much did we pay in labor in August? I'll know that exact number so quick. The other thing this spreadsheet does, which is amazing, is now that I have the total number of hours for each person, or the total number of dollars that we're paying them that month, then I could easily upload that to payroll or just have that information to just pay out in cash or to send to a payroll company, whatever it is. So this very simple spreadsheet speeds work up a lot. That's it for part 1, where we went over the total system as well as hours and why you'd want to track those and how we go about tracking them, which is a pretty simple system. Stay tuned for part 2, where we're going to talk about how to track lessons and how to track the number of rides a horse gets in a month.